Hello and welcome to another edition of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo. We're your Steelers beat writers. And as always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. This podcast is presented by FanDuel. Stay tuned for all the new odds, ends, and lines on the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward after their win over the Bengals this weekend. We also want to give a thanks to our sponsors at Edgar, Snyder & Associates. Believe it or not, at Edgar, Snyder & Associates, their competition isn't other law firms, it's the insurance companies. If you have been hurt in an accident, watch out. Insurance companies will short sell you. They will deny your claim. They'll do anything that they can to avoid paying you. With over 40 years of experience, Edgar, Snyder & Associates has seen every trick in the book. When you hire their law firm, they'll fight for the insurance company every day to make sure that you get the money you deserve. They're available 24/7, so call them now at 1-800-94-EDGAR. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Ray, Mason Rudolph yet again comes in the pinch for the Pittsburgh Steelers and against the Bengals. But in doing so, there's a big question moving forward about Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers suffered what Mike Tomlin said was a left hand injury. We heard left wrist injury and all these other different things. We're going to get reporting later today about Jerry Dulac about the extent of that injury, as the Steelers are going to do some tests today to confirm just how severe it is. But there's a sense that it's not a long-term injury. It is a short-term injury that will keep him out against Chicago. But what is the sense that you have about the impact of not having Aaron Rodgers? Because, frankly, he didn't play well in Los Angeles against the Chargers. And even though he did have a touchdown in that first half, he wasn't looking his sharpest either against the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Chris, it looked like things were pared down for Mason Rudolph, and he simply took what was given to him. I thought the best plays that he had, and credit to Mason for doing it, but dump-offs.
Yep.
Wing passes in the flat to Kenneth Gainwell. Dump off to Darnell Washington on 3rd and 17, and he gets 18. Those were some of the most impactful plays that the Steelers had in that football game. So, sometimes more is less, and I think that's what we saw with Mason Rudolph. They know what he does well. They had a plan when he came into the game, and I thought he executed it very well. On that touchdown drive that put them up 27-12, Chris, he was 6 for 7 on that drive, and that was really the death knell for the Bengals. After that, they were in catch-up mode, and the Steelers defense did everything they had to do to close out that football game.
And we'll talk about the Steelers defense in a bit, because they had a really good game, maybe even their best game this season. Maybe the Colts game, but again, we can talk about that in a bit. But I think that it's interesting to see Mason Rudolph come in and just simply take what's there, and this offense works. And you look at the time of possession that the Steelers had in this game. They finally won the time of possession, literally by 5 seconds, the time it took them to kneel down the end of the game. But when I look back and I look at how that time of possession was doled out, it was that they played that possession style of football that they've been talking about all season with Mason Rudolph on the field. In the first half, they had the ball for 5 drives. In those 5 drives, they had 34 plays. They took off 16 in just under 16 and a half minutes. When they had the ball in the second half, they had 2 drives, basically. In those 2 drives, they had 28 plays and took off 13 and a half minutes. So with 3 less drives, they had only 6 less plays and took up less than 3 minutes less off the clock in that. That's a vast difference in how they've been operating. And if whoever's at quarterback, Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers, can just do that part, possessing the football, it changes everything for this team.
Yeah, it's all about converting third downs. What have we heard from Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith the last couple of weeks? Why can't you get more snaps? Why can't the offense do this or do that? Well, their answer is always, we need to convert on third downs so we're on the field more. And I think we saw that certainly in the second half against the Bengals yesterday. Can't say enough about Darnell Washington and the plays he made. Kenneth Gainwell and the plays he made. Both these guys really started out the season as backups. But, Chris, if you look at the snap distribution, I think it's clear Darnell Washington is now the number 1 tight end. He's the featured tight end among that position group. And Kenneth Gainwell, whether media and fans like it or not, it's like a 1A, 1B type of situation at running back.
Mhm.
Jalen Warren was able to come back in that game yesterday. I talked to Jalen Warren in the locker room in a little media scrum after the game. He was like, yeah, I was good to go. It was coach's decision. They held him out. And why not? Kenneth Gainwell was healthy. He was out there making plays. I don't have any issue with the coaches riding the hot hand in that situation. But I just think it speaks, to the depth of that offense right now. There's not a lot
Yeah.
of star power there, but there is a lot of quality depth. And that's what really got them through that football game on Sunday.
I agree. I mean, and your point about Jalen Warren, this team values Jalen Warren, but we even saw, we didn't even need to talk Jalen Warren. We saw in the second half there were times he was running back in trying to get on the field, and they were like, "Get off!" Like they were trying to keep him. I think they want to keep this guy healthy because they know how good he can be, and they're like, "We don't need you making a small injury worse in a game where our number 2 is whooping some butt." And so, I think it kind of, points to why the Steelers were okay with keeping Jalen Warren off the field on third downs last week against the Chargers. And I know a lot of people were up in arms about that, but it didn't have the, maybe that wasn't the problem against the Chargers. Maybe it was throw the ball to Kenneth Gainwell on some of those third downs because you see what he can do when the ball is in his hands. So I think the depth, you're right, absolutely there. Darnell Washington, 46 snaps to Pat Freiermuth's 30. I mean, heck, Pat Freiermuth got outsnapped by Jonnu Smith 35-30 there too as well. And against the team that Pat Freiermuth historically owns, he beats up the Bengals on a regular basis. The only time he didn't is when they admitted after the game we used him as the decoy to set everyone else up.
Chris, are we officially at the point now where we're like at the Jonnu Smith, Cordell Patterson, like sort of like where that discussion where we were last year? Like,
what
exactly is this guy's role and why does he have a role on this football team? I get it. You're paying the guy a lot of money, but for him to outsnap Freiermuth, when they threw it to Freiermuth on Sunday, he was effective. He was breaking tackles. He was good. So I don't get that. I mean, we're complaining after like a 20-point win or whatever it was, but to me, there's still some stuff they got to figure out on offense, and I think the snap distribution among the skill players is, chief among them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the historic thing that's been with Arthur Smith since his days as a head coach with the Falcons. Everyone wondering what is he doing with Kyle Pitts? What is he doing with Drake London? What is he doing with Bijan Robinson? And it's like you have an offense with DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth, and you're excited about all these different things. And your leading receivers were Kenneth Gainwell for 81 yards and Darnell Washington for 67 yards. And it's like, right. I mean, he got the job done, right? But what's the key here? What's the plan here to get those things going? And I think it does come down to something Aaron Rodgers often says. He's like, hit the open guy. And listen, if that can consistently be the thing that they hit the open guy, that is dangerous because then as a defense, I can't scheme up to take one guy out because if I can't scheme up, like we talked about going into this game, I wrote a story for the weekend about how teams were double teaming DK Metcalf and it was limiting what the Steelers wanted to do, especially on third downs. But the answer wasn't find other ways to draw up DK Metcalf. It was attack the players that aren't DK Metcalf. Get the ball to Freiermuth. Get the ball to Warren, to Gainwell, to Wilson, to Austin. Give them all chances. Let them be playmakers. And in this game, Kenneth Gainwell catching those balls out the backfield. Darnell Washington catching the balls over the middle. I mean, Roman Wilson finally got, getting involved with that pass over the middle. I think that was a third down conversion. Those things open up DK Metcalf. And then eventually he got some of his catches. He had 5 catches for 49 yards in this game. So I maybe Arthur Smith's offense is more about that balance, but you just need a quarterback that can strike that balance. And that comes to the question, can Mason Rudolph do that consistently this year? Yeah. We know that he could do it in a pinch, but depending on how long our friend Jerry is able to, see how long he's going to be out when we get that reporting later today, that might be a big turn for the Steelers this season.
Yeah, listen, I didn't break it down by quarterback, and I don't want to cause any undue controversy here, but my take on it just from the eye test, Mason had a better rapport with DK than Aaron has really exhibited all year. And I know there was even like that one that was underthrown on the sidelines. That could have been another chunk play there. It could have been upwards of, 75 yards receiving if Mason doesn't underthrow him there. So it just seemed like DK was open a little bit more, or Mason was willing to throw it to him a little bit more to get him in space. Again, a small sample size, only one half of football, but if Mason is the guy going forward, or at least against the Bears, as Aaron deals with this injury, it's going to be interesting to see if that rapport is something that's real, or if teams are going to go back to having a lot of success against DK. But it did seem like for that one half that Mason was able to find DK and he was able to make a few plays.
Absolutely want to talk more about this team, but we got to talk about the defense. Because they had a really good day. The offense was up and down in the tale of two halves. The defense was also a tale of two halves, but even in the half that they were more questionable, they still kept it together. And I think that's a good sign for this defense moving forward, because despite the Bengals not being a good team, that offense is still electric, and them being able to stop them might be a good sign for them moving forward. We'll talk more about that on the other side of this break here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Ray Fittipaldo, stick with us. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo. We continue our show here, but first, we'll remind you this show is also brought to you by Olivia Numismatic Rarities. If you got old gold or jewelry collecting dust, turn it into instant cash safely and securely at Olivia Numismatic Rarities right here in Pittsburgh's Shady Side neighborhood. Gold prices are at historic highs right now, and O&R pays top dollar for your unwanted gold, silver, and coins. Stop by their premier gallery at 5833 Ellsworth Avenue in Shady Side, or learn more at their website, onrcoins.com. That's onrcoins.com. Call them today at 412-900-COIN today. We're also brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. For over 40 years, their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Ray, the defense came to play in this one, allowing just 12 points to a Bengals offense that, since they acquired Joe Flacco, they've scored 30. They were going into this game, they had scored 37.6 points per game. Like, they were lighting teams up, including the Steelers. And you saw the change in how the Steelers, the Steelers played defense in the past few weeks. We've written about it. We talked about it. They're going a lot more too high safeties. They're putting Jalen Ramsey at safety. They're putting Kyle Dugger at safety. But it really seemed like this was the test that I was like, okay, can this defense do that and win? Can they do it against top tier receiver talent? And they did in this game. Jamar Chase held to 3 catches on 10 targets for just 30 yards. Tee Higgins, 3 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. Granted, that touchdown might should have maybe have been called back for the hold on Cam Heyward. But I look at this, it makes me wonder, has the defense figured out the big problem that was really ailing them this year? They still needed to be better against the run in this game, but the pass game was the thing that had been really killing this team, and it didn't kill them. In fact, that was what won them the game, was that they shut it down.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin talked yesterday, and he's talked about it for a few weeks now, that stability at the safety position. And it sounds so simple, but, really, you look at some of the guys who they were playing at that position early in the season, and I'm not talking about Deshaun Elliott, who's injured, but Juan Thornhill isn't even on the team anymore. And,
right.
Chuck Clark and some of the other guys that they've had back there were, we're giving you average or below average play. So when you switch things up the way you did, you maybe hurt yourself in some other ways. You can't play a lot of man-to-man. Your cornerback room is now thinner, but to their objective, they made things a lot simpler on defense. They're playing faster, and the results are there. I mean, they look terrible against the Chargers, but let's take a look at what's happened since that Thursday night game in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's lost 3 in a row. Steelers have won 2 of 3. And their defense was really, really good in that Colts game and in that Bengals game, obviously on Sunday afternoon. So they're doing a lot of things right. Got to stop the run better. I know that's going to be a sore spot for Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin. Chase Brown still had a couple of big runs. Again, I think against better teams that are more well-rounded, that's going to hurt you. But by and large, the defense is really – it's night and day from where it was after that 33-31 loss in Cincinnati, which is now a month ago. It's a much better defense than what we saw in Cincinnati.
And even against the Chargers, I mean, in that game, when you looked at who gave up what, it was really just Brandon Eccles getting beat in that game. Everyone else, like I think Joey Porter Jr. might have just had his best 3-game stretch of his career. I mean, he had the interception against the Colts. The Chargers didn't do anything against him last week, and now this week, I mean, I still have to look up the exact coverage numbers that he has, but I thought he pretty much shut down everyone that came his way. And if he's able to do that now on a more consistent basis, that's gonna be really interesting to see, because I think that Joey Porter Jr. We've talked about how important he is. Also, by the way, I just found the numbers here. Joey Porter Jr. when lined up with Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase, 3 targets, no completions. That's a good day for your number one corner.
And correct me if I'm wrong, no defensive holdings or no DPIs yesterday too, which
no penalties.
News in and of itself against the Bengals, because we all know the history there with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins.
Yeah, and I think that's the huge part of this game for the Steelers was they got their top corner to play well, but they got everybody to play. Brandon Eccles, I thought, had a good game. I mean, James Pierre, we can't say enough about him. Personally, Ray, if I'm the Steelers, I got to say, hey, Darius Slay, appreciate you. You're a legend. You're a former All-Pro. We respect you. But James Pierre is our starter until further notice. In this game, he was targeted 9 times, allowed 5 catches for just 35 yards. That's very good. Broke up 2 passes, and then almost had an interception, and then and he recovered the fumble. They returned it for a touchdown. I thought James Pierre was lights out, but I thought Kyle Dugger was lights out too. He had the pick 6. But he was also targeted 4 times, allowed 3 catches. But in those 3 catches, they just get 38 yards. No one got really burned in this game. I thought this was a really, really well put together performance by this Steelers defense. And if they can do this, continuing to move forward and limit other passing attacks the way that they did the Bengals, it could give them a big boost down the stretch.
Yeah, it seems to me in terms of the secondary, their biggest question going forward, and I don't know how they solve it, is slot corner. Eccles is probably more of an outside guy. You have Asante Samuel on the practice squad, but he's never really done that on a full-time basis. So they have a lot of outside corners now. And obviously, Chris, your best slot corner is now a free safety, and he's doing a really good job at free safety. So there's no really good answer to what they're going to do there. Maybe it is you just stick with Brandon Eccles and see if he gets a little bit better there. But, to me, secondary has been really, really good in the past 3 games. And if they can get that slot corner role fixed, I think they'll be even better.
I think it also kind of spits in the face of the whole the idea that the Steelers don't make adjustments, because they have switched up how they call the defense. In this game, they were like throughout most of the year, they were like kind of 60-40 using 1 high safety versus 2 high safeties. They love to drop back and cover 1 man. They love to drop back into cover 3 spot drop zone where, there were obvious holes where defense or offenses were targeting. And now they're running these 2 high safety looks that give their corners more support. And yes, it's less run support, but it's giving the corners more support, and they're playing more aggressive. And now you're seeing that more consistent play. And so that's a big adjustment that they've made, and they're playing much better. So people who say the Steelers don't make adjustments, you're wrong. And then even in this game, the first half, whereas you could say, well, the difference was the quarterbacks and how the Steelers flipped from being 2 of 7 on third downs to 5 of 6 on third downs from the first and second half. The defense also flipped it. The Bengals were 5 of 8 on third downs in the first half, 2 of 7 in the second half. This team, I think, is able to adjust. They have smart players on defense. When they put it together, they can be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And the secondary was the biggest problem all season. Everyone was wondering about the pass rush. Why wasn't the pass rush getting home? And listen, it wasn't great yesterday, but they got home once, and they applied some pressure in some other occasions. I think it was Herbig who had a pressure on the Kyle Dugger interception. He was closing in on Flacco there.
Both him and Watt. I think Herbig got there, but I don't think Flacco saw him. You see Watt just coming in with a big arm, and I think he kind of forced Flacco to throw it early, but both of them were coming.
Yeah, so when you don't have the sacks, maybe it sticks out like a sore thumb, but you have to consider the pressures. And I thought Flacco really has done a great job against the Steelers over the years. I know he's been turnover prone throughout his career, but not against the Steelers. They finally got to him yesterday, and the Dugger pick was huge. I mean, they're driving for the potential go-ahead score there in the third quarter. Dugger makes that play, and it's 20-9, and they pretty much run away from the Bengals from that point. But just a huge play in that football game, and a much-needed game from the secondary to step up, and they certainly did that against the Bengals.
Absolutely, they did. And I think, again, if they're able to do that to the Bengals, they could do that to a lot of teams. And granted, Joe Flacco is a different kind of quarterback than they'll face. Josh Allen creates things on his own. That's a very different style of offense. The Bengals lean on their wide receivers to make plays. The Bills lean on their quarterback to be the playmaker. So that's a different challenge that they're going to face. But it gives me a little bit of wonder how they'll match up with the Ravens, because they still have to play them twice this year. The Ravens are not a talent-loaded receiving core. They know how to get after them. They know how I think that they can do that. If they can trust their corners to do that and be more aggressive against the run against that team, that could make it, those two games, some juggernaut battles, like just for division on the line, both teams throwing down the gauntlet. Those could be some great football games. And unfortunately, that means, Ray, we might have to cover a night game at some point that gets flexed into that position later this year.
Yeah. Hey, listen, was there any doubt the Steelers travel to Baltimore in 3 weeks? And lo and behold, that game's going to mean something. And I would not be shocked if that game in Pittsburgh to finish out the regular season is a big one too. The NFL knows what it's doing with the schedule, and it seems like it's going to work out that way again.
Absolutely. We'll have a lot more coming your way on coverage of this week as they get ready to play the Bears. By the way, the Steelers open this week as 3-point road dogs to the Bears in this matchup. With the Bears, they're coming into this game 7-3. The Steelers 6-4. The Bears, just like we all thought, the Bears are leading the NFC North. Totally, everyone predicted that, right? But now this is a Week 12 matchup Sunday. The Steelers money line is at plus 138. Bears at minus 164. Excuse me. The over under currently set at 44.5. I think that this line moves when we get more Aaron Rodgers information, and we know for sure that Mason Rudolph starting, even though we're pretty much 99% sure that's going to be the case. But we'll keep you up to date on those updates throughout the week, and we got lots of things to go over. We got film to break down. We got we'll be talking to Tomlin tomorrow. We got locker room stuff coming later this week. Keep it here with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the North Shore Drive podcast as our team continues to break down the Steelers going into this week. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.